What's going on, family? It is your boy, JT, Jonathan Tarver, the corporatepreneur. And man, I'm digging deep back into the archives for this one. I want to tell you about the time that I almost got fired. That's right, your boy, JT, he almost got fired at one point early on in my career. And this is what really set the tone for me to understand, like what corporate America is about, or like what corporate America is like. So going back, diving into the story. Okay, so this is like, man, what year is it? We're in 2021. So this is like 6 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I got my first job right out of college. Okay, so I'm working for Macy's in this executive development program. A lot of people remember me back in the day. And I worked at Macy's, right? And I was working at Macy's downtown on State Street, Chicago, Illinois, the historic Marshall Fields building. And this was like a dream for me, right? To be able to have the power suit on, going into work every day, downtown, the buildings, riding the train in, the other professional people. Man, it was just like the epitome of what corporate America was like. Man, I was living it, I was doing it, city life suits, all of that stuff, right? And I was part of this executive development program at Macy's, and I had been working there for, it was almost maybe a year, right? Or I think might have passed a year, whatever the case may be. And I was at a point, in my job where I was feeling like, man, okay, like what's next, right? I was getting a little bit just not complacent, but I was just feeling like, okay, I'm kind of okay here. I've done, pretty much everything I need to do for the most part. Man, I'm kind of wondering, like, what's next for me? What am I going to do next, right? And then one day, all right, I go into work and I have a meeting with one of my managers, and it's one of our coaching reviews. I think this is like a mid-year review, right? Every company, you get an evaluation, right? Sometimes you do it mid-year, sometimes you do it at the end of the year. But I was having an evaluation with my manager. She's going over some things. Hey, I think this is where you're doing well. This is where you have some area of opportunity. And, and then she starts breaking it down, and she's like, well, I just think that you have an opportunity to pull through and follow through on a couple of things, in particular, the area of coaching your team members, and I was asking you to kind of dive in and get your binder together so you can coach and, kind of show me some of the progress that you're making with some of the sales associates. And then, I just don't think you're really taking this role serious, right? And, going into a meeting, having a mid-year review, with the impression of, hey, I have been doing well, things are fine. And also, mind you, I believe I had just won sales manager of the season, right? Or of the year, right? I had just come off from having, pretty good performance and really good numbers. But I'm being told in this moment that, man, you're not performing well. I don't believe that you're coaching your team like you should be. Oh, and it was also said, this is another thing, that I don't believe that the results you achieved are your own doing. Basically, they felt like, I had nothing to do with the success that I was having. My name was just on there, like I had nothing to do with it. So them feeling like the success that I had, it wasn't because of me. Maybe it was just my team or by happenstance, whatever the case may be. But it wasn't a direct result to me. Administratively, they wanted me to use this coaching binder a little bit more, and rightfully so. Hey, I could have used the binder a little bit more. I would give you that. I'll also say that it was one of those things where, man, like no other managers were really using this binder at all either. So for me to kind of get dinged on it, man, I really felt like, yo, you guys are like picking on me. This is out of left field. You can pull all 20 other managers' binders, and I guarantee you, you will probably see a consistent result, across, the majority, right? Let's say 15 out of the other 20 something managers, right? But anyway, right, I do admit I could have done a little bit better in that space. But outside of that, I was kind of blindsided. Hey, I just won like sales manager of the season, of the year. Having this review, and you're telling me that you don't believe the results that I achieved this far are actually mine or are attributed to me, and therefore you're writing me up for my performance, and I need to tighten up and I need to do better. And you guys, like, I walked out of that meeting completely blindsided, completely floored. Like, I've never been written up. I've never been on any type of, performance evaluation or nothing. I mean, this is my first gig in corporate America. I don't even know how this stuff works, right? And so I walked into that meeting completely blindsided. I remember looking at the coaching form saying, hey, I wasn't cutting it here in this area, based on what they kind of felt. It was subjective. It was subjective, right? Because objectively, I was meeting the goals, but it was basically, subjective, saying, hey, I didn't believe that you were meeting the mark here. And also, it was said something about my love of maturity, something to that effect. And I admit, coming out of college, right? I'm a fun guy. I've got great personality, outgoing, very motivational, and I like to lighten the mood, quite a bit as well. And I think sometimes when you have a different personality, people can perceive you differently, because of that, right? But this is just about corporate America. Man, yeah. So that really, it really set your boy back, right? And in that moment, there were so many lessons that came in that moment, So I left out of that review. I took it, I signed off on it, and I wish I hadn't done that because leading up to that point, there was no other documentation that stated that I was underperforming or that I wasn't cutting it, right? So I literally just walked out of the blue and was told, hey, in this meeting, you're not cutting it, blah, blah, blah. This is what's wrong, da, da, da. And I was just like, man, well, this is what they said. This must be law, right? Not realizing that, in corporate America, man, you gotta have a paper trail for something to stick in most cases, right? And you want to get things documented to protect yourself. But I didn't know that kind of coming in. I just kind of took it at, face value. Man, they write me up. I'm about to be out of here. I got, 30, 60 days to turn it around. Otherwise, I'm pretty much a wrap, And I'm like, dang, well, what can I do? I done won, sales manager of the year, and they trying to fire me, right? So I just felt picked on. I remember even reaching out to one of my mentors and telling her what happened. And she said, hey, did you sign off on it? Hey, you don't have to, don't agree with it. Try to talk to HR, try to, get something, try to fight it, da, da, da. And at that point, it was just like, man, I was so hurt. I'm like, man, I'm about to quit. I'm getting out of there. So I remember tightening up, trying to be as perfect as I could. And just proving it to myself that I could, quote unquote, give them what they wanted. And I wasn't going to let them fire me, but I was going to leave on my own terms. So I spent the next, month or so just doing the best I could, right? Little areas where I could tweak it, be better, be perfect. I did that just until I could provide my way of escape. But the main lessons, what I want to share with people watching is that, one, when you're working in this corporate America setting, this corporate America environment, it's not enough just to come in and work and put your head down, right? It is a game, and you got to navigate it, properly. It's about building relationships. It's about, you kind of got to toot your own horn. You got to show people that you're working. You got to show what you're doing. It's not enough just to come in and work and put your head down. You kind of got to be advertising and promoting yourself. You want to have things be documented, right? So whether it's emails or after in-person meetings and stuff like that, you want to document what was discussed, what's expected of you, and you want to have those types of things, a paper trail of that, so that way if you did ever need to take legal action, you did ever have to fight HR or anything like that, you got a paper trail of interactions that can show what's actually transpired and what's actually happened. Also too, and then just from a trustworthy standpoint, right? There were people who I thought were really close to me, in the corporate space, and just wondering, like, man, well, where could this have come from, right? Like, it came out of left field. Who would have, maybe even say, well, yeah, you need to look at JT because I don't think X, Y, and Z. Who might have maybe put the microscope on me, right? Did I get too comfortable with peers, right? Or were peers maybe threatened by me or my talent or my capabilities, right? That's another thing with the whole corporate America thing. Everyone is not your friend. I know companies talk about, oh man, culture, vulnerability, and trust, and I get that to a certain degree, but man, these people are not your friend, especially coming in, being young, having a degree, versus people who have been in these positions for a long time. If you're a younger person coming in, you're deemed as the future, and you got bright ideas and you're tech savvy, you are a threat to some of your senior peers, whether you like it or not, whether you look at it that way. Most of those folks, they just want to coast and, ride off to retirement. But here you come raising the bar with your ideas, with your spunk, your creativity, your tech savvy. You a threat, and, I have had employees try to, take me out. Man, that's a whole nother story. But, yeah, man, that's basically like my story about how almost got fired at Macy's, man. I was doing my thing. I was feeling like, hey, well, what's next? I mean, I did get a little complacent, but it wasn't to the degree to where I should have been written up or anything like that. I was more so thinking about my next move. And then to kind of be blindsided with, hey, well, we writing you up. Like, yeah, that completely came out of left field. But it taught me so much about corporate America, about how never to be laxed. You always want to be proactive. You want to have a paper trail. So as I mentioned, another tip is you should always be checking in with your managers, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever. You always want to have these check-ins to say, hey, how am I doing? Am I performing up to the standard? Do you have any feedback for me? Is there anything that I need to be working on? So that way you're not walking into a review or any other portion of, a meeting and you're being blindsided and being written up, right? That's not right. It's not fair. And if you really wanted to fight, I really believe I would have had a strong case to defend myself. But being new corporate America, man, I laid down and I took it. But I left. But so that's something else too. You want to be proactive. You always want to know where you stand. You always want to have that feedback, so that way you're not blindsided with different things like that. Having a paper trail about, what's going on, communications, different things that you are doing well, your areas of opportunity. You want to make sure you have both. Make sure your manager, just as well as your manager can say, hey, you have areas of opportunity. You want to make sure your manager also can say, hey, you got some areas of strength, okay, that you are executing on well also. Also, too, another hack, another trick that you want to do is you want to print out whatever your expectations are or initiatives, right? Whatever they're going to grade you on. And you want to make sure that you have maybe a specific example for each one, that you can show that, hey, manager, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've done. Hey, we're supposed to show accountability. All right. So boom, accountability looks like, hey, these are my numbers for the week. This is where we are. These are the action plans that I'm going to do to turn these numbers around. This is the time period I expect to do that. I'm just letting you know what my plans are and what I'm working on. Okay. That's a one way that you can show accountability, right? Or leadership, right? Well, hey, you know what? I noticed that, our territory, our business, whatever, we were struggling here. I decided to, rally the team and get some ideas together on what we can do to improve or increase this benchmark. Hey, that's you showing leadership and accountability, right? Just in that example, but just, look at what your expectations are for your role and, be thinking about how you can get in front of, those mid-year reviews or year-end reviews, and how you can showcase, that you're on track, that you're on par with executing on your expectations, right? That's another way to keep you from being blindsided on different people's lists. Just kind of recapping, right? So one, you don't want to be complacent. You want to have as many open dialogue communications you can with management, upper leadership. Get that documented. You want feedback to know where you stand, monthly, weekly, whatever, as often as you can get it. So that way you have enough time to correct and put the fixes in, right? And then like the third piece, right? Look at what the company's values and expectations are, right? And make sure you have an example of how you're executing on each of those things, and make sure you communicate that to the manager. So that way, when it does come time for a review and there's, I don't feel like you've done X, Y, and Z. Well, you can say, no, remember when I reached out to you and I shared with you what my business plan was, or I talked to you about, leadership, or I talked to you about accountability, according to this is what, the company defines as that, right? So that way you've got actual ammunition to show that you are doing your job, right? If you're going to play the corporate America game, right, you got to play it the right way. Okay. And this is how you play the game. I didn't know this coming out of college. This is trial and error. This is almost me getting fired, right? Where I realized that these things are important. So I hope this is helpful to somebody. If you're in your career right now, if you're going out to get your first job, I just want you to be aware, like, corporate America, you got to play the game right. Okay. And this is just from me and my experience. And I hope you can take something from this and implement it while you're working and navigating your career as well. So go ahead, please like and subscribe. Share this out with someone. My story of how I almost got fired. Hell, somebody might have got fired, because of, a similar situation. But we want to help people who do, decide to progress and pursue corporate America. that they have the tools and resources to navigate it. So this is my experience. So yeah, I hope this helps. So go ahead, like and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to Corporatepreneur TV. And until next time, peace and love.